So let's start on our backs. And actually, really, my picture is not going to be all that important because I can talk you through. So, in fact, the more that I'm going to really challenge you today that to close your eyes and really work deeply inside yourself. And rather than check in with me visually to see, okay, am I doing it right? Just drop that whole idea of right and wrong and follow your body's natural movement when I suggest a certain way to try something or something to explore. That'll make it more beneficial for you than being able to see me all nice and clear. Okay. So starting on our backs, constructive rest. Just notice that arrival moment on the floor. And that with each passing second, the substance of the body alters, it changes. Things release. You may even be making some mechanical adjustments. Your breath might respond to this change of posture. You may become aware of sensations that you otherwise wouldn't have noticed. And as you breathe and feel and allow your body to release towards the ground, its support, and there's a chain reaction through all the connected tissues. If I can surrender the weight of my feet, then I feel a response in parts of my legs, my groin, my belly. I become aware of that. Again, my breath might respond with a sigh, a yawn. And then I can feel more of my upper body. And as I release the area of the middle back, the lower ribs, the back, I can feel a reaction, a response elsewhere through my arms, now my head. So what do you feel it looks like we're doing absolutely nothing, and yet there's so much happening in this stillness. Not just the involuntary functions of the heart and lungs and brain, but our awareness is able to really zero in on what would otherwise go completely unnoticed. We can finally feel our bodies. And for some people, that's actually a place they don't spend a lot of time. And I know it can be really uncomfortable to be in the body, especially if you have any trauma that's still unresolved. And that's okay, you know. Just continue to feel the ground, be aware of your sensations, and be aware of the boundaries of your body. Where does your skin end and the space around you begin? And so for me today, I can feel quite a bit of nervousness through my psoas. Probably because of some of the technical difficulties I was having before I started. That chemical reaction or response to the stress is still in my blood. It's still reacting. So I was with some friends for the first time, all socially distancing, a couple of days ago. And I was saying that my week was somewhat difficult, or that you know, I mean, parts of it were okay, but the day before had gotten quite difficult. And somebody asked me, well, what do you do when you have those feelings, you know? And I thought about it for a minute. And sometimes I distract myself, you know, if it's too much. That's part of my regulation, to take a break. But I know that ultimately I have to just feel what I feel. There's no getting around it. And when we try to get around the uncomfortable feelings, they just embed deeper into our psyche and become more difficult to deal with, more habitual. So maybe just take a moment here while we're in constructive rest, allowing the body to soften, to think about what you do when you have an uncomfortable feeling. Do you resist it? In what ways do you resist? Or do you feel it? And what tools help you to do that? So maybe allow a few deep breaths here. So one of the things that I do, not as often as I used to, but more lately, is work with the voice. And so that's a really good way to be able to feel your feelings, especially the deepest embedded ones. The voice can really get in and under and chip away and lift away quite easily some of those deepest held restrictions, tensions, old patterns, old energetic storings. So maybe we can do a little voice work together while we're still in constructive rest. And I'm just going to invite you to start gently moving your... Okay, hello there. So this morning I started a Facebook Live that I was getting reports kept freezing and wasn't and not giving a very good picture. So if you'd like to join me on your mat, so we were in constructive rest, and in the video we were doing some really good work with intuitive movement and voice work, and that spontaneously turned into some shaking, and those are two really powerful ways to deal with whatever you are having to deal with, in your life right now. Probably a lot, like most of us. So if you want to come down on your back in constructive rest, and arrive. Feel that back body. It's interesting. Every time I lie down like this, there's such a big release and a different sensation every time. Like just now, I really felt it along my thoracic spine, my mid-spine. Sometimes I feel it more in my lower back. Sometimes I feel it more in my legs and feet. So, it's always different, even though it seems like, okay, I've done this pose before, and I know that I just kind of hang out here, right? And though we're not really seemingly doing anything, there's a lot happening if we allow our tissues to soften. If we open our awareness to the changing sensations in the body. If we become aware not just of the changing sensations within us, but our environment as well, what is external to the body. And I suppose for some people it's more common to hang out in that external area. And for others it's more common or more habitual to be more internally focused. So there's no right or wrong. It's just being able to learn to switch your attention from either or and. Allowing any response that might arise, be it a yawn, a sigh, a need to adjust something. Or perhaps it's more on an emotional level that things are arising. You know, if we've been going, or distracting ourselves from something, when we finally stop that uncomfortable sensation we've been avoiding, or maybe just haven't had time for, it becomes more apparent, more tangible. So we just want to welcome those feelings. You know, and if you can't say, oh, so nice to see you, my anger, or, you know, yes, I welcome my anxiety, then you don't have to be so polite, you know. You could say, well, here you are again, damn it. And there's nothing I can do but feel you. And so I will. And just notice if there is an emotion arising, where you feel it in your body, and if it changes the sensations you're feeling. I got in touch with some resentment and could feel it in my abdomen as a tightening and a kind of twitching. They say resentment is unexpressed anger, or anger turned inward rather than it being expressed. And that may not be helpful to you if you're not feeling that, but take note for next time. Take note for when it does arise, if it arises. So I'm just getting in touch with my breath now. I invite you to do the same, just to start feeling the rise and fall of the belly or chest. Yeah, and I'm definitely feeling guarded in this area. And, you know, it's not uncommon. This is the second brain of the body, the psoas, which is one of the deepest core muscles that is right next to really the spine, on either side of the spine. And when we feel guarded or defensive in any way from emotion or from situation, whatever, then that muscle can become quite tight and guarded in protection. You know, what a sweet thing that our bodies work so hard to protect us from, you know, what are often mental constructs that feed emotion, and or just pure emotions that are arising, that are in the air, you know. We are so affected by not just what is personal to us, but what is transpersonal. And there's a lot of fear and anxiety and all sorts of things in the world right now, confusion. Any of that can be impacting any of us at any time. And yes, it may be ours to own, but that isn't necessarily always the case. We just work with it when it arises as best we can. And it will either help us or maybe help the greater collective if it's not really about us. And I know that's a crazy idea for some people, but from my experience, it's true for me. So, let's start to allow the body to move in any spontaneous way. Earlier today on the original video, I was kind of doing the windshield wiper thing. And though it doesn't feel quite intuitive in this moment, now that I've done it, I'm feeling that there is a bit of a desire to maybe accentuate So you're just going to start to move in any way. Just let the body go and follow it. And when you find something that feels good, then deepen it. Explore it a little more. And so the next thing we want to do as we are moving, holding, now I'm in a hold, I'm not really moving, but it feels really good in my outer hip here, in the buttocks. So we can start to add some sounds. And on the video I was saying that for people who haven't done this kind of work, it can be very intimidating or uncomfortable to just let sounds rip because, we're just not used to it. And there can be a lot of conditioning, messages about it being improper or, silly, whatever. So if you're not ready to just make any kind of sound, you can just start with a sigh first, So as you move or hold and breathe, just let something go. Now see, I can feel like there's something there. Like I also mentioned in my video, there's a lot coming up for this week, coming up for me this week. And so, I'm going to be kind of working with that in this video, I think, whether or not I want to. But I can feel what is happening with my sigh is that it's really short and truncated. And that is an indication to me that there is something underneath that I'm, that my nervous system is kind of guarded about. So it's just something to notice for yourself. If you're making like real short sounds and kind of short, then there might be something deeper that you can work towards. So I'm going to try to do that now for myself. So just to point out to you the way my voice now is changing somewhat. So, as opposed to the one-time really short thing, it turned into several short things on one breath, and then it started to turn into longer audiations. So that too is something to just watch for and notice. If after you've made some sighs, you want to start to explore some sounds. Something that is really easy to do for most people is the mm. So as you're moving, and it's kind of a, something that we do frequently anyway when we're stretching. So you can make those kinds of sounds. The other thing you can do is pick a vowel, A, E, I, O, U, either long or short. And you can tone those sounds as well. So if I picked N, what do I feel like? An oo. I'm kind of feeling ooey. So I might just start to ooh, 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 ooh. Don't forget to breathe, like I just did. Okay. And right away the ooh just kind of turns into an ah for me. Ooh, or an so more UH. So I'm pandiculating here. I'm not doing a yoga pose, I could. I could do a yoga pose. Let's see. I could go into bridge. And just release from there. Or I can just intuitively move, pandiculate, be a cat or dog or whatever. And just keep sounding. That's good. Sometimes when you find something and you use the sound to help release it and deepen it, then you can come into something that feels a lot more pleasurable. So that is more of a pleasurable sound. And also, it's all the way into the belly, the sighs that I was doing in the beginning with the short little that was tension, right? Whereas the that's the release, and that softens this, which is exactly what I need. So, you start to build up an awareness of the different types of sounds and how they relate to feelings in the body. So tell you what, let's just come back to constructive rest, whatever you've been doing. And let's just do a little check-in. Just breathe. Note any sensations you feel. And if this is really, weird and odd to you, and there's judgment coming up about what it looks like, then be with that. So, noting sensations. Noting maybe, because I've been working towards the camera a lot, so this left side of my body feels really worked and the right side not so much. So just notice if there's any imbalance in you right now. And so if there is, just go ahead and work more into that other side or do whatever you need to feel more balanced. Remember to breathe and sound. Sighs, mms, or vowels. E, 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 o, e, uh. Oh, mm, 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 mm. Ay, yeah, yeah, that's good. It's funny how you just kind of land there, or can. Mm, 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 mm. Okay, so meet me back in constructive rest when you feel complete. Just notice any sensations running through your body. Whew. So lovely. All this tension that was in my belly, most of it, not all of it, most of it is gone now. Or at least different. I wouldn't say gone because, there are always deeper and deeper and deeper levels. It's like a never-ending black hole there. So, any other little stretching you want to do? So now the movement for me is changing into this happened earlier too, a pelvic tilt. So I'm arching my back, tilting my pelvis towards my feet, and then flexing back. So just extension and flexion through the spine, if that feels good to you, or whatever you want to do. The important thing is to breathe and sound. Ooh. Sometimes the sounds may feel forced, and then other times they'll just come. And that's okay too. Playing with, just allowing yourself to experiment with those two things, kind of feeling like you're having to force a sound is part of learning how to sound naturally. Especially if there's a lot of inhibition. Now I'm just kind of shaking through, and this shaking feels so good. This is something that animals do when they're startled. They shake it off, and then, they're not necessarily traumatized for the rest of their lives like people can be, because we freeze, we lock. And, you can see people in life just, if the way they hold their bodies, you can tell where the tension, where the trauma is in their bodies from how they what kind of posture they have. So shaking helps to make the body more supple, softens into those places where we hold so much tension, and can help to release a lot of ancient, even collective energies, collective trauma. So, and that collective trauma is really palpable in the world right now, so it's a good thing to do. And you know, there are all kinds of tribes from different healing modalities. The tribes would shake or dance as part of their healing process. And it's also part of different yoga traditions, like I'm thinking Kundalini yoga, they have lots of practices of dancing and shaking. I know there are others as well, other traditions. And sorry, I'm just getting into it, so I can't necessarily talk at the same time. You know, when I've done this with clients, what I notice a lot is like there's this controlled kind of attempt to shake, and there's so much tension in the body that they can't loosen the tissues around the bone. What you want to try to do is allow the tissues around the bones to shake, rather than using the muscles to shake. Because if we use the muscles, the arm tenses. Okay? So it's a jello-like sensation. And, you know, this is feeling so good on my lower back right now. And I'm just kind of jiggling through the hips. And the way that this is supported to happen is through my feet and through my sacrum, you know, the bone here at the back of the spine. It's rooting down and really connected to the ground, as are my feet. And that's what's allowing all of this tissue to just be loose and jiggle. Well, and this is another thing that I do, is that the toning can turn into laughing. And that's a wonderful way to release. And for some people preferred, definitely more socially acceptable to laugh than it is to go, ah. So, ooh, wow. So I was feeling a lot of what to me felt like lactic acid or something in my legs. You know, it was feeling a little uncomfortable, which is good. I mean, when we shake like this, you know, we're moving lymph. The lymph doesn't pump itself through the body, and so if it stagnates, allergies. When it stagnates, you know, it's toxic. So we have to move. And this shaking is like, you know, you don't need to do anything else. This is just like a workout in itself. I have to blow my nose. I think I'm just gonna sit up for a moment here. Right up on those sits bones. And breathe. If you want to come into a butterfly, I'm just going to start winding down. Give myself a little massage here. Obviously, as soon as I touched my feet, I realized how tight they were. So go ahead and massage your tootsies. And it's not just the bottoms of your feet, but get the tops of your feet too. And even work up the legs. What I've got is my hand like this around my ankle and calf. And you can just kind of rotate up and down. It feels so good. Okay, maybe working along the shin bone, on the outer edge of the shin bone, just pressing in with the fingers up and down. Okay. So we've done a lot actually in a little bit of time. So go ahead and go back onto your back and let's go into a Shavasana. So legs straight out from you. Feel free to use a bolster under your knees or under your head. You don't want your chin to be jutting back. So if you need something for that, feel free to get that. Sorry, still allergic. Okay. Just relax now. And let's just do a little recapitulation of our session. You know, one of the things about doing videos like this is there's no feedback, there's no being able to gauge where you guys are. It's so hard. And since I can't be of service to you in that way, I'm just going to lead you to do a bit of a recapitulation for yourself. So just begin by sensing the body and how you feel at this moment. And then just think through what we've done together. So we started in constructive rest. We just kind of relaxed there and got in touch with any emotion that might have been hanging out in the body. And then we started to move in a kind of intuitive way, not in any particular way. And with the breath, we released various kinds of sounds. Recapitulate for yourself which sounds you were comfortable with and which you weren't. Those you tried, those you didn't. How it might have felt for you to release those sounds. Consider whether you noticed a difference in the sounds from various movements. Some sounds might have been more tense, and other sounds might have been more release. And then we came onto our backs. We just did a little reflection before we started some more intuitive movement. And I said that you could do the same thing with a yoga pose. So were you able to move more spontaneously, or were you duplicating movements that you've been taught or shown or know are acceptable ways to move? And there's no right or wrong, just note for yourself. And then we went into more of the shaking, jiggling. Were you able to feel the tissues around the bones jiggling? Or did it feel like your whole arm was trying to control the shaking? Whole arm, whole leg. Were you able to feel an energy when you stopped? And did it penetrate your whole body? Even now I can feel a little in my legs. So nice. And then just note also, if you'd like, what's different for you now than when we started? And then finally, just acknowledge yourself for however you showed up for this. And begin to move fingers and toes again. Feel free to take a long body stretch, or bring your knees to your chest if that feels better. Coming onto your side in your own pace and time. And pushing yourself up to a seated position.
Thank you for joining me today and for your bravery. All the future videos of the Facebook Saturday Practice Lab are going to be available only to Tranquil Living Tribe members in the future. If you'd like to learn more about becoming a tribe member and all the benefits, go ahead and visit my website, dlcsco.com. Bye.